Let's jump right in. We usually just go about our days assuming there are these solid, impenetrable walls protecting our stuff, our money, and where we can go. But today, we're diving into the fascinating and honestly sometimes shocking realities of U.S. law. Let's start with a really scary hypothetical. Picture this. You wake up, grab your phone to check your balance, and boom, your bank account is completely frozen. You can't buy groceries, you can't pay rent. Or imagine getting an official letter in the mail just calmly stating that the government needs a chunk of your private property, and yep, they are legally taking it.
Sounds totally impossible, right? Most of us think the government can only do that kind of thing with our explicit permission. But the truth is way more surprising. Authorities actually hold a bunch of legal powers that most people have absolutely no clue about. Some exist for public safety, sure, or to collect taxes and investigate crimes, but they are very real, they are powerful, and understanding them is absolutely crucial to knowing your rights.
Today, we are uncovering 10 government powers that might surprise you, and we'll hit them in 6 key categories. Taxes and summons, freezing accounts, search and seizure, passport restrictions, emergency powers, and finally, the limits of government power.
Okay, Section 1, Taxes, Records, and Summons. Listen, if you owe taxes, the government absolutely has the power to collect them. But here's the good news, they can't just empty your bank account overnight. They have to follow a really strict chronological legal process. First, they assess the tax and send a bill. If you ignore it, they must send a final notice of intent to levy, which usually gives you at least 30 days. Only after all those steps and offering you a collection due process hearing can they actually legally seize your property or garnish your wages. So it's an immense power, yes, but the procedural steps are strictly defined.
Now, it's not just about money. They can demand your information, too. The government can issue a legal summons to make you show up in court, or even force third parties, like your bank or your boss, to hand over your financial records. And if you get a lawful court summons, you do not want to ignore it because the legal consequences are serious. However, if the IRS issues a third-party summons to look into your taxes, you are legally entitled to receive notice of it, and you actually have the right to petition the court to quash or cancel that summons.
All right, moving into Section 2, freezing accounts and tracking funds.
So yes, your bank account really can be legally frozen. This might happen because of unpaid taxes, like we just talked about, but also from court judgments, criminal investigations, or suspected financial crimes like money laundering. Banks are legally required to report suspicious activity, and authorities will act on those reports. But take a deep breath. A frozen account doesn't mean your money is literally gone forever. It just means your access is temporarily locked. Plus, you absolutely retain the right to challenge this freeze through a due process hearing or by proving your compliance.
And there's a massive protection you have here thanks to a Supreme Court ruling called Lewis v. United States. If you're accused of a crime, the government can freeze your tainted assets, meaning the money directly tied to the alleged crime before the trial. But what about your innocent, legally earned money? Well, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, nope, the government cannot freeze your untainted funds if you need them to hire a lawyer. This makes sure you actually have the resources to mount a defense and protects your Sixth Amendment right to counsel.
Next up, Section 3, searching and seizing property.
You know, there is a vital difference between types of legal warrants. A judicial warrant, that's signed by a judge and demands immediate compliance. But an administrative warrant, like the ones typically issued by Homeland Security or ICE for civil immigration issues, is fundamentally different. It is not enforceable by a court. For instance, an employer is not legally forced to comply with an administrative ICE warrant, and they can literally just ask the agents to leave if that's all they present. Knowing exactly what kind of document you're looking at changes everything.
Generally, the Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches, meaning cops usually need a judicial warrant. But there are legally recognized exceptions based on your location. In your home, they need a warrant unless there's an emergency or you give them consent. In a car, officers can search if they have probable cause to believe criminal evidence is inside. At international borders, authorities can do routine stops without any individualized suspicion at all. And in schools, officials just need reasonable authority to search a student, not a full-blown warrant.
Then there's civil asset forfeiture. This one shocks a lot of people. Under this law, the government can sometimes seize your private property, like your car or your cash, based merely on probable cause that it's connected to unlawful activity. And get this can happen without a criminal conviction. But this power is not absolute. Property owners can demand proof that the property was tainted, assert an innocent owner defense, and seek judicial review to get their stuff back.
Let's jump to Section 4, passports and travel restrictions.
These powers definitely don't stop at your property. They can restrict your movement too.
Your ability to travel internationally isn't some untouchable right. While most people are free to go where they want, the State Department can legally deny or revoke your U.S. passport for several reasons. Some are obvious, like felony warrants or drug offenses, but others are surprisingly administrative. If you owe more than $2,500 in child support, or if you default on a government repatriation loan, your passport can be yanked. If you happen to be stranded abroad when this happens, regulations do allow them to issue a limited direct return passport just to get you back to U.S. soil, but your broader travel rights are suspended.
Moving on to Section 5, Invoking National Emergency Powers.
When the President or Congress declares a national emergency, a completely different set of specialized laws unlocks, and history shows us just how vast this can be. During the 1940s for World War II, the government used these powers to take possession of lands for defense. In the 50s, during the Korean War emergency, they invoked a statute to literally reclaim public airports that had previously been given to local governments. While these powers sound intense, they are temporary, strictly limited by the specific emergency statutes enacted by Congress, and they remain subject to court review.
Which brings us to our final section. Number 6, the limits of government power.
If you take away anything from this explainer, let it be this. The Constitution severely limits government authority. Every single power we've talked about today has boundaries. The absolute bedrock of your protection is due process, guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendments. Due process means the government cannot permanently restrict your funds, revoke your passport, or seize your property without following fair, established legal procedures. You always have the opportunity to be heard, to challenge their actions in court, and to demand that they legally prove their case. Let me give you a quick example. Take the 2024 Supreme Court decision, Cully v. Marshall. 2 women had their cars seized by police after lending them to people who ended up getting arrested. They sued, demanding a preliminary hearing immediately after the seizure. The Supreme Court ruled that while an immediate preliminary hearing isn't constitutionally required for personal property, the Due Process Clause explicitly mandates that a timely post-seizure forfeiture hearing is constitutionally guaranteed. Basically, the government can't just take your car and drag their feet forever. They have to give you your day in court in a timely manner.
So yes, the government has a lot of legal authority. They can levy taxes, freeze accounts, seize property, and restrict travel. But knowing about these 10 government powers doesn't mean you need to live in fear. Honestly, it's the exact opposite. It means understanding exactly how the legal system works. When you understand the limits of their power and the procedural hoops they are legally required to jump through, you are empowered to make informed decisions and protect yourself. If you found this explainer helpful in uncovering the realities of U.S. law, make sure to subscribe for more easy-to-understand breakdowns of your rights. But I want to leave you with an important question to ponder. As technology advances and the government's ability to track our digital and physical lives grows, how do you think these age-old legal powers will evolve next? Remember, this explainer is strictly for educational purposes. It's not legal or financial advice, and laws vary heavily depending on your specific situation, so always consult a qualified attorney. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.